platforms on social media. And now, ladies and gentlemen, let me welcome the Minister without Portfolio in the Office of the Prime Minister, the Honorable Robert Nesta Morgan. Minister Morgan. We welcome those online.
Morning, everyone. Welcome to the Office of the Prime Minister. Welcome to our post-cabinet press briefing. This morning we have with us our special guest, the Minister of Education and Youth, the Honorable Favour Williams, who has some very important updates for you. I will start off with just a few cabinet decisions that have been made over the past couple of weeks, and then I will invite Minister to present, and after which we will take questions. About just two major decisions were made: the award of a contract to provide grades 7 to 11 e-books under the Ministry of Education's National Textbook Loan Scheme. Minister Williams will update the country on that when she comes here. There was also a variation of contract to supply and deliver bulk fuels to the Harbors Department of the Port Authority of Jamaica, and also an award of contract for road rehabilitation works along Phase 3 of the retirement to Hurlock to Fairfield Point, St. James Road. This contract was valued at about $163 million. There were also some board adjustments made. We have Mr. Colin Verga, who is now the chairman of the Jamaica 4-H clubs. There's also Dr. Derek Deslandis, who is now the chairman of the Jamaica Dairy Development Board. Also, Mr. Linton Johnson, now the chairman of NMIA Limited, that is Norman Manley International Airport, as well as Mr. Christopher McPherson, who is the new chairman of the Cannabis Licensing Authority. Those are some of the major decisions from Cabinet. I will now invite our special guest, Minister, and my former second boss, Minister Favour Williams. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Minister Morgan. Good morning, everyone. Let me acknowledge our moderator this morning, all the members of the media who are here and online. Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here to give an update on our schools and to take any questions that you may have. As you know, schools started on September 5, 2022, and you know as well that the first 2 weeks are generally orientation and a settling down of the system. I believe the system has settled down despite the adverse weather events that we just experienced, starting last Friday into Monday and Tuesday. So let me go into a topic that I know that I've read and seen many questions about, and it has to do with furniture in our schools. As you're aware, we have close to 1,000 schools in operation across Jamaica. When you add the nearly 3,000 early childhood institutions, that will give you a sense of the size of the education system and the demand for things like furniture. So the ministry continues to make major investments in repairs and delivery of furniture to outfit our school system. This awesome task requires a multifaceted approach and partnerships involving many stakeholders. We have adopted this partnership approach with some of our schools, and it has been working well. So that is why the majority of schools that requested desks and chairs received at least a portion in time for the start of the new school year. In time for the beginning of the 2022-2023 school year, the ministry delivered some 6,483 pieces of furniture to infant and primary schools. We'd like you to remember as well that earlier on in this year, our high schools were given $800,000 each, so they could go ahead and repair and procure their furniture. Just to outline the quantities that are expected to be delivered, in the next month or two. So for student desk and chairs, 15,500 pieces. Trapezoidal tables, 1,200, and 3,600 chairs. Teachers' desk and chairs, 1,600, for a total of 21,900. And the way we're doing this is we're utilizing our local talent in our schools under a program called the Select Group Program. This initiative facilitates the manufacture of furniture from scratch by high school students. The projects are carried out under the careful supervision of teachers and at times other skilled persons. The furniture is then used by the school and sold to adjoining schools. The ministry has significantly increased the resources allocated to the program for the 2022-2023 years. And it's an interesting program. I know I don't have a lot of time this morning, but just to say that the Jamaica Bureau of Standards visits the school sites where the manufacture and repairs of furniture take place. They check the quality of the product and give it their stamp of approval consistent with their rigorous standards. There are many schools that have come on board to do this. Just to name a few: Belmont Academy in Westmoreland, Mushet High in Trelawney, Holland High also in Trelawney, Central High in Vertec in Clarendon, Ocherias High in St. Anne, Arokabessa High in St. Mary, Port Antonia High in Portland, and St. Andrew Technical High and Papine High in St. Andrew. We're seeing innovation in this work that is being done at our schools. Textbooks, Minister Morgan mentioned that, just a recent procurement of e-books. We sent a schedule to schools outlining when textbooks would be there. Unfortunately, we are also subject to the same supply chain pressures because all the textbooks are printed outside of Jamaica and have to be shipped to Jamaica. We're using e-books for the third year in a row. The adoption is better this year than when we started the first year. We directly send the download link to the students, and that has proven to be more efficient. There's only one download required of the student, and that book will be on their device for the year. We've worked with our schools in order to understand their particular challenges. They've indicated the mix of textbooks versus e-books that they would like, and we have complied with that. Just in terms of important dates at schools, let me move on to that. The Grade 1 registration and administration of the Grade 1 Individual Learning Profile, the GOILP, should already be completed. This was done during August to September 23, and what that is, it's an instrument that's used to audit students' social, cognitive, and interpersonal skills and the learning environment. And the information that is gleaned from that is used by teachers in Grade 1 to assist them in identifying the specific needs of each child entering Grade 1. We're asking parents to make inquiry as to what that assessment says about their child so that parents can better support the child at home. Just a few words on the National Student Registration System. All students should have a National Student Registration number. This is something that has been at the ministry since the Prime Minister was the Minister of Education. The National Student Registration System has served us well when we had to pivot really quickly to give devices to our students. It provided a great audit trail and ensured that only one child receives one device. We collect information such as home address, email address, and telephone contact. And we'd like for all our students, if there's a need for a replacement, the parents should contact their schools and the school administrator will make the request of the ministry. Coding in school continues. We're pleased with the 5,000 students who were registered for that program that started earlier this year, and it's something that we will continue to encourage in our schools. And with that, Minister Morgan, let me say as well, I'm sorry, I know that when we started the school year, there were a lot of questions on teacher migration. Just to say, we believe things have quieted down. We have not seen the same level of anxiety that we saw before school began. Obviously, teacher migration is a global phenomenon. There are significant shifts, workplace shifts on the way across the world in a lot of countries. We gave strategies for teacher recruitment, including the concept of locum tenens, in which teachers on leave, on their long leave, can return to teach and be paid for teaching as well as for their leave. We will know exactly where we are when we do the census taking in October in our schools. In the meantime, as a data point, we're seeing fewer advertisements, and we're not hearing that there are large number of positions to be filled. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Minister, before you leave, there was an issue that was brought up at the last post-cabinet press briefing, I believe, and I think it has been online regarding the length of dresses, and there has been statements made regarding your position on it as it relates to length of dress and sexuality and so forth. Would love if you could make clear to the public what the ministry and your position is on the, because I know that some of the content that was in the public domain is actually not true, and persons, I think, would benefit from an understanding of what the facts are. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Minister. Prior to school starting, we began our consultation on dress and grooming in our schools because I knew that it was going to be a very important topic when school starts back in the face-to-face mode. The policy of the ministry is an overarching one. It does not prescribe the details for our schools. The policy says to all our schools that, one, their local policy for the school should be written. It should be arrived at through a consultative process with all the stakeholders, meaning parents, teachers, students, and other stakeholders. The policy should not be discriminatory. The policy should recognize cultural differences, religious differences, and so on, but it must be applied fairly across all students. So we set at a high level the standards, if you will, by which we will measure the policy at the school level. It is not currently done, and it is not our intention to prescribe the length of a girl's uniform or the length of a boy's pants or the size of it. We leave those decisions to our boards in our schools, and each of our schools has a board comprising a parent rep, a student rep, depending on if you're primary versus high school. We have principal, sometimes vice principals at our schools, and we believe that the decisions about uniform is best done at the school level. We encourage a consultative process. Uniforms have been a staple in the Jamaican culture, in the Jamaican society, going back probably centuries. There is great pride that schools take in designing their uniforms and in prescribing exactly what it should look like. I know that our schools do send out information, they post information on their website as to exactly what the uniforms should look like. In the case of the Godfrey Stewart High School, it's my understanding that they arrived at the decision about the uniform length through a process, and that parents were sensitized to this starting in May of this year. My position as a minister, our position as a ministry is that we will continue to stand on the side of discipline, of law and order. We believe our schools are the ideal place in which to teach our students to obey rules, beginning with obeying the school rules. If there are rules that, as a parent, as a student, as a teacher, or others in the system that you do not like, we are encouraging you to engage the process. It could be as simple as a meeting with the principal. You may have to move from that if you feel that you did not get a hearing. You may have to write to the board. You may have to advocate peacefully with other parents, take up signatures. We're used to doing that in different communities when we want to get decisions changed. We have to get to that point in our school system in which not just students, parents, and all the stakeholders are operating in a space in which there is respect for everyone in that space, and if there's disagreement, there's a process through which you air what that disagreement is, you talk it through, and you come to some consensus. It might not be, the outcome might not be what you want as a parent, a student, or a teacher, or other stakeholders. However, we live in a democracy. Consensus is what we strive to get, and once that is reached, then everybody needs to fall in line and obey the rule, especially school rules. You have thousands of children in our primary or high school, almost 1,000 schools. We have to have a system, we have to have a method. And in those cases where you're saying parent-teacher meetings are not working, let's work on getting parent-teacher meetings working. Let's work on reviving those at schools in which they haven't been held for a while. That's what we should be putting our energies on in terms of working through issues and disagreements that we may have. We all, from time to time, shake our heads about the disorder that exists in our society. But you know what? We are all responsible for that disorder in terms of some of the decisions we make on a day-by-day basis. So I'm calling on all our parents, our students, our teachers to wake up every day and consciously think about what it is that you will be doing to ensure that law and order is maintained in our schools and in the country as a whole. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister, for that update. We can now proceed to the question and answer segment. Naomi, you can manage that?
Sure, no problem, Minister. So we ask that you just state your name and the media entity that you represent and pose your questions. We have one at the back.
Good morning, everybody. Arthur Hall from the Jamaica Observer. I have a question for you, Minister Morgan, and two for Minister Williams. I'll go with yours first.
Good morning, Arthur.
Can you give us an update on the Cabinet Secretary? Ambassador Sanders is slated to go off shortly. Has the Cabinet made a decision, or has any decision been made about who will replace him now?
Thank you very much. Last week, a similar question was asked. The selection of a Cabinet Secretary comes through the Office of the Services Commission. And that is the authority that manages the entire process. I would have to wait on them to make a decision as to who the next cabinet secretary is and when that announcement will be made. When they make the announcement, when they make the decision, it goes to the Governor General. He approves it or signs off on it, then it comes to us and we announce. The current cabinet secretary is at work. He's obviously was planning his post-cabinet secretary life, but I suspect he will be with us for a little bit longer.
Oh, so you're saying to me that Ambassador Saunders will remain in the post until its replacement is selected?
Definitely.
Okay. For Minister Williams, Minister, can you say why the textbooks are still being printed outside of Jamaica? Is it a cost, and how much does it cost to print them? And what is your position on schools who are locking out the children for dress violations?
Thank you, Arthur. The first question, why the textbooks continue to be printed outside of Jamaica. Timely question. We just completed a look at over the last 5 years. I don't have the figures off the top of my head about how much we've paid for textbooks and why is it that we can't have those books printed in Jamaica. And in every case, it's been the cost. When you do the comparable cost, it's been that cost that has caused textbooks to continue to be printed outside of Jamaica. You will note that we have, for the 3rd year in a row, begun to use e-textbooks. This year, more than the prior 2 years, or English textbooks has been in e-format for grades starting at grade 7, I think all the way up, even the Cape English book. It's a one-time download, as I said earlier on. The cost, there are significant cost savings to doing that, and we will continue to move in that direction. We will obviously ensure that our students are able to access and that the adoption is smooth. We will look at some point in time in the school year, we will assess the access. We will assess how students are doing with the e-books, and that will allow us to make the next decision in terms of where we go from there. But it's been a cost problem. And then your second question, no, students, schools are not allowed to lock out students, regardless of whether it's uniform or something else. Schools are not allowed to do that. There are too many risks associated with that. Once a student steps on the school compound, we act in the place of parents, and I've consistently said that there should not be any locking out whatsoever of our students from school.
Minister, thank you for those 2 responses. I have 2 online that I just wanted to put to you. Someone is asking, in terms of coding in schools, what schools are participating and how they can get their child to be part of that Coding in Schools project. And secondly, emanating from the Education Town Hall Time for Action, there was an outstanding question, and the person has placed it back online concerning a policy on solar plants being at schools to help reduce the cost of electricity and energy that the school plants use.
Okay. I don't have the details of the coding in school. I know it was in a pilot mode, but it will be rolled out. Well, we will continue to roll it out in a more broad-based way across the system, so every child and every teacher will have a chance to participate in it. As you know, Jamaica has been moving towards being a digital society. I know that many of our citizens or students already have some access to a device, access to internet connectivity. But in our schools, we want our students to be more than consumers of technology. We don't just want them to go on and go to Google or look at TikTok And we want them to become producers of technology. And the way to do that is to help them understand how they instruct a computer to do what they want the computer to do. And the language that you use to do that is a coding language that you have to understand. I'm sure there are many different types of coding language, but we want to get our children understanding that so they can become innovators in the system. But the policy on solar at schools, actually there is there's a pilot underway that was approved by Cabinet, I think last year, if my memory serves me right, for 30 schools. That went all the way through to procurement. An entity was named to do the installation. It's one of those transactions in which the company that's doing it has to do the assessment of the school, to see the usage of the school, to size the solar units that they will have at the school, and then the payment back to the contractor would be the savings that the school would have, the savings between what the school is paying now versus when you install that solar plant. My understanding the last time I checked was that the contractor was in the process of seeking financing in order to begin this whole process of the assessment and the installation of the solar. But obviously, it makes sense for us to have solar, installed solar panels installed in our schools. Our schools are in operation during the daytime, in the sunshine. They all have roofs, flat roofs, that can be utilized. So once this pilot goes in and we get the learnings from the pilot to see the effectiveness, the cost efficiency of it, then we are able to make other decisions about how we expand the program if that's what the data is pointing towards. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. I believe Mr. Hall has another question, and he says final too.
Final from me. Minister, can you give us any update on the Edwin Allen situation that has gone viral with the teacher and students in the classroom? Or you saying you were checking on it?
Right, I don't have an update right here this morning, but I will endeavor to get one before the end of day. I did see the video. I didn't hear everything because it was a little bit muffled. But in these situations, we do have to follow up with the schools to understand the situation there. I don't have that report just yet.
Thank you, Minister Williams. And I see Acting CEO Dr. Troop has joined us. Welcome, Dr. Troop. It's always good to have you here. Naomi, do we have any more questions?
No, Minister, there are no further questions this morning for post-cabinet.
Thank you very much. I'd like to thank the team from the Ministry of Education, the team from the Office of the Prime Minister. Also want to thank the technical support that we got from PBCJ and JIS, as well as the members of the media who attended upon OPM today for the post-cabinet press briefing. Members of the public, thank you for tuning in. And until next time, have a safe, wonderful, and productive day.